All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast for all you wonderful champions of the whole goddamn world. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside my good friend Sam, CFC Central. And we're going to be breaking down Chelsea's upcoming match, the return of the Premier League is upon us, and Brentford is the opposition that your beloved Blues will be taking on this weekend as they get back onto the pitch to secure hopefully another 3 points in what we would all love to be a Premier League winning campaign from our wonderful, wonderful team. Though, Sam, I think we just want to, off the very, very tippity top, before we get into Brentford in our match previews, we talk about the strengths of the team, the weaknesses of the team, how we think Chelsea can exploit them. You throw some questions my way, much like Maresca would have to answer in that post-match press conference or to think about from a strategy perspective. And then we get into our wonderful on-the-ledge predictions. We do want to cover off with the news. It came out on the 11th of September that Chelsea are, at this point now, hit with 74 charges over agent payments. This was reported by many individuals, including our good friend of the pod, Matt Law. And it did indicate at the very, very top of his article that Chelsea are confident that they will avoid a points deduction despite being hit with 74 charges over alleged off-the-book payments to agents during the Roman Abramovich era, and that they believe that the fine will be comparable to the UEFA penalty of around £8 million. And that is hopefully in a good spot then. Chelsea are talks with the FA and then also the Premier League, whose own investigation is still going on. It is potentially a expectation that there are detailed elements of the Abramovich era that will be made public in regards to if the FA does punish Chelsea for breaching these regulations regarding agent payments. Some of the deals that are apparently under scrutiny are ones like Eden Hazard, Willian, Samuel Eto'o, but there's no suggestion that any of the players were themselves aware of the potential issues or problems there. So just want to get that out of the way at the very, very top, because that is something that's kind of in the news sphere at the moment. But, any immediate reactions to that, also off the back of the Manchester City 115 charges type of situation news coming out. If you have any thoughts or feelings, feel free to share. Otherwise, we'll leave the conversation around charges and administration of the game and then jump into the preview. But it's your call.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you let 115 charges go, then, well, 74 should be easy enough. And I mean, I did read the Simon Johnson Athletic article, and says that even if we had declared the money there on the books, we would have comfortably passed all the thresholds. So again, I do believe it's right of the club to sort of make it transparent and say, look, we are cooperating with you. We are giving you every single thing in terms of, access to data and very confidential files, so you can go through them, and you find inconsistencies there, we can work on it and resolve it together. So I think the club has taken the right initiative and absolutely doing it in the best way possible. So I think it works from there. You should respect that, because you are setting a precedent. If a club is cooperating with you, then give them a little slap on the hand and say, don't do it again. And the way that we're doing our business right now seems very sustainable for the future, Dan. So quietly confident that it'll be a fine for breaches done a decade ago, and then we move on to becoming world champions again and getting a few more titles.
Oh, that just sounds like the worst possible thing in the world. Promise me some trophies and a light little fine. I'm going to sign up for that every day of the week. But look, we're going up against Brentford. It's an opportunity for Chelsea to get some business done here. And if we just look at how Brentford, the Thomas Frankless Brentford, the Brentford that has lost a significant number of players over the summer window as well, it has not necessarily been the finest of football that they've had a chance to put on the pitch here as well. I mean, they opened the season against Forest. They lost 3-1. They had that match against Aston Villa that they did win. They won 2-0 over Bournemouth in the League Cup game. And then they lost what I imagine will be one of the few wins of Sunderland's season, a 2-1 loss right before the international break. Just off the top, there's been so much change in this Brentford side. I mean, Sam, it almost feels as if, and again, we're not necessarily wanted to throw stones. I mean, we've had situations in our club where there has been massive season to season level of overhaul in coaching staff and players. This is a very hard thing for a football club to manage through. And Brentford are currently in, I would say, the very, very early days of trying to re identify themselves under a new head coach with a new complement or a refreshed ish side of individuals, not necessarily refreshed, but maybe recast individuals. That has to be one of the most difficult jobs in the Premier League this season, is going to be keeping this Brentford team afloat.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to survive after your spine has been ripped out of you, and you've essentially not had any time to make those arrangements to bring in the requisite amount of quality. So you talked about it, massive departures. Thomas Frank being obviously the highlight there in terms of orchestrating and building that playbook along with the owners, making Brentford such a nasty side to come up with. So that I think in itself is just a colossal loss. And when you look at the personnel, you've got Christian Nogard, who was the defensive linchpin, was doing really well, obviously approaching the 30 mark. So the fact that Arsenal snapped him up also says a lot about how highly rated he is from a defensive standpoint. But yeah, I mean, you look at the other two, Juan Visser and Brian Mbomo, the latter two, of those names have just contributed 50 goal and assist contributions in the league alone last season. And they finished as the top two scorers for Brentford and the second and third highest assist providers at the club. So it's just very hard to replace it. Even if you have 150 million lying around, it's just very hard to get that goal return back. And the Visa saga sort of dragged right until the final day. And it's just very, very hard to then, possibly turn around and find that kind of quality, no matter how good your scouting setup is there. So I think that's a massive loss. But if we look at just what Brentford have tried to do, they've bought in Liverpool's Alisson backup in Kerman Kelleher. Michael Coyote is somebody who was very highly rated at Fiorentina. So he's been bought at right back. Tango Otara is somebody that I watched quite a lot when he was in League 1. He's come to Bournemouth, and from there, he's just bought in as somebody who can play both wings, two-footed winger, can also play at wing back when required. And obviously, you need a little bit of quality to replace what Norgard has sort of like taken with him to Arsenal. So they got Jordan Henderson on a free transfer from Ajax, and essentially trying to reinforce like for like and make sure that those leadership qualities, those organizational qualities are just preserved in the best way possible. So big task for Keith Andrews, Dan, and it's going to be a very, very difficult season, probably the toughest season they've had in the last 7 or 8 years.
Well, considering that, then why don't we just go through a little bit more specifically about, I mean, their style of play? It doesn't seem as if they have major injuries like we do at this moment. But how have you seen? Again, we only have a few matches here under Andrews' belt at this moment. What are you seeing in his style of play? What are you expecting from a formation setup in terms of possession? And then we can kind of get into maybe more specifics around things like the attack.
And definitely. So before we go to the individual elements, just taking Brentford as the unit. So Andrews is trying to preserve and take Brentford's identity in terms of a 4-2-3-1. Very solid out of possession, trying to go back to front, make sure that you have those strong transitions lined up, get dangerous shots in those situations. That game model is more or less trying to be stuck to in any way that they possibly can. So the 4-2-3-1 is, I would say, a little bit of what worked for Thomas Frank with the personnel that had played in that system and done well. And then they've also tried to integrate these new signings and trying to teach them what is required. So it's early days, like you mentioned, only 3 league games in. So it will possibly take a lot more time for them to gel. But they still like to press aggressively. I was watching the Villa and Sunderland games for this one, and at times, pressing goal kicks, making sure they've got five, trying to press the back five and 3+2 and trying to aggressively pressure the goalkeeper. So there is still that trying to win the ball back. And again, it's just an identity crisis in the simplest way possible, Dan. Like, they're trying to adapt to their principles, but there's also not that quality there to make it happen. So For instance, right now, 3 games in, and I would stress this, please take all numbers with a pinch of salt because it's 3 games in, but they're third from bottom for possession with just 38.7 per game. And this is down from close to 49% the season before. And they're also bottom of the league for touches per game. And this is despite them playing Villa, which I believe are a good possession side, but Nottingham Forest, who are usually towards the bottom of the possession table, and Sunderland, who are essentially coming from the championship and should be, at least in the initial stages, a little bit of a doubt in their mind in terms of can they replicate what they're doing in the championship here. But Sunderland, to their credit, have done incredibly well. So against those three sides, touches are down bottom and possession is really, really bad. So not quite adjusting to the game model, I would say. But if you just look at out of possession, also again man to man, sometimes they just follow the opposition, but largely tend to go 4-4-2. They shift if the opposition tries to go five versus the last line. So against Villa, at times they were in a 5-2-3 with the winger on one side dropping to become the wing back, and then Damsgaard and the other winger making a front three and the double pivot, basically making the two in the middle. So the idea is a lot what sides in the Premier League try to do against teams like us. If you favor the center, block it off. Try to be compact. Try to make those lines very, very difficult to breach. In deeper positions, they go to a 5-4-1. So very hard to play against them. And Brentford, we know their identity is big, strong dudes, very good in the air, very good at recovering second balls, just doing the basics right. So if you try to cross, they will swallow it up and they will throw it back again in terms of transitions. So it's just that difficulty, trying to break down Brentford when they're in those tight situations, when they're in those compact areas, and that's going to be the big challenge. But the numbers wise, just to give you a little bit of context, so they are top in terms of the Premier League for percentage of their shots taken from central positions, with 88% of the 24 shots have been taken from just the center. They've got 0% of shots from the right hand side, and the rest 12% come from the left hand side. They're also joint highest for percentage of shots taken inside the 18-yard box with 73%, and that's, I think, higher than Manchester City as well. So just gives you context. They are a side that loves staying back, not prioritizing possession. The moment they win the ball back, it's back to front, get the speed in there, and then get close to the box, inside the box, and get high value shots, dangerous shots away. And that's what makes them very, very dangerous. It's not working, it's not clicking, but it doesn't mean that you take them for granted.
Very important to keep in mind. We're going to get our first ad break out of the way. When we come back, we'll get deeper into a conversation around Brentford's attack, and then also start to talk a little bit about the weaknesses in this side, which there are a couple bullet points there. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. All right, Sam. So why don't you go a little bit deeper with, again, this refreshed attack, or just a different looking attack rather for Brentford, obviously with a couple of their core pieces pulled out and now finding homes elsewhere in the Premier League and abroad.
I mean, I kind of feel bad for them, like losing Ivan Toney and then losing Mbermo and losing Vissa. It's just, three guys who are solid scorers. Neil Mope wasn't bad either, but the three guys has just been tremendous in terms of like an output standpoint. But right now in attack, they've got Igor Thiago, who is, in my opinion, a very robust target man, somebody who's just there to knock down long balls with the likes of Damsgaard and Ouattara on the break. Damsgaard is quite, I would say, the danger man in that area, Dan, because he is quite crafty, and by far he's their most liveliest creator, somebody who's very good with his feet, who can carry the ball into dangerous positions. He can find crucial balls on the break as well. So he's going to be quite difficult to manage, but he's somebody to watch out for. Uh, in terms of the attacking dynamics, Dan, it's important to note that on the left hand side, there's this player called Kevin Schad, and he functions as a secondary target man, somebody who's not a winger. So Brentford are second in the league for goal kicks launched, which means that Kelleher, when he has goal kicks, 3 out of 4 goal kicks, he boots it up the pitch. And Thiago tends to drift left towards Schade. And both of these guys offer what is a dual target man system. So it's essentially going from goalkeeper to the left wing for two tall, aerially good players, trying to knock it down and essentially bypass the press, start the attacks from there. So that is something that you have to be careful of, and I think Maresca has to tweak his side accordingly. Are you going to put Gusto against Kevin Schade in the air, or are you going Reece James after what, two international games in the window against him? I think the choice is simple to make in terms of who you would prefer, but that's what Gallagher and that's what those two guys are going to try. Constant long balls to the left channel, and from there Brentford try to build their attacks. So I think that's a key, attacking principle for them. Thiago, I also want to mark out as somebody who's excellent at flicking balls over his marking CB. So if somebody gets too tight to him, then he'll just flick it into the space behind. And you've got somebody like an Ouattara who's absolutely rapid, and he chases those long balls, gets 1v1 against the goalkeeper and tries to finish. He did get a goal against Sunderland, and that was ruled out because he was just marginally offside. But the quickest guy in the front line by far, and you should be looking at runs in behind. So I think aerial threat wise, Maresca has to figure out. Tosin would be a good option. Who's at right back managing Kevin Schade? And then who's got the speed to recover if Ouattara gets in behind? I think that's going to be key to figuring out their attack. In midfield, we mentioned Christian Nogard, who's gone to Arsenal, so his absence is quite heavily felt. And they've got now Jordan Henderson and Yamaluk playing together in the double pivot, which is a very sturdy, ball winning, keep it safe kind of pivot. So Brentford rely on them to close the distances down and in that tight shape, win the ball back and start those transitions as quickly as possible. So those are the two guys who'll be trying to make just those interceptions, those defensive actions, recover the second balls, recycle it as quick as possible, safely as possible, and then go from there. At the back, you've got, I would say the full backs are two guys I want to highlight because they offer back to front support. Coyote is somebody I've mentioned, very impressive in Fiorentina. He's come to the Premier League and looks quite at home. So he looks to maraud forward as much as possible to support Ouattara on the right hand side. Will try to offer overlaps. Sometimes ends up, at the edge of the box, trying to recover balls and pass it to forward positions. So he's somebody who's dangerous enough and somebody who has to be handled. So the winger on that side has to be very diligent in tracking back. So I think that's going to be an interesting challenge for whoever plays left wing. Could be Pedro Neto, purely for the reason that he does offer that industry. And on the other side, you've got Akin Lewis Potter, who's also a pretty good fullback, offers, I think, everything in a good amount of quality and quantity. So he doesn't really bomb up very often, but if he gets the opportunity, he will offer the overlap, will offer some dangerous crosses into the box for Thiago. So somebody who has to be like the fullbacks are pretty good from an athletic standpoint, will bomb up and down and offer threat both ways. So that's something that definitely needs to be marked down. In goal, I don't need to introduce this man, Dan Kimmin Kelleher. I think he's our bogey keeper between the sticks. He's sort of starred on multiple occasions against us. There's that infamous penalty shootout lost to Liverpool in a cup final. And I think another cup final as well, where he pulled off some really, really good saves. So yeah, I think if Palmer is fit and gets a penalty, it should be a very good contest between him and Gallagher. But that essentially takes care of the individual elements. I think there's a lot of aerial threat that will have to be taken care of, and just the speed with which they break, which will cause issues then if you're not careful.
So then, switching gears, because now we've heard things that should at least cause us a little bit of pause and realize, again, with anything with football, with Chelsea, not always in the bag. What are the things on the opposite side that you feel as if Chelsea, Maresca, the players are going to be looking at as ways to really exploit this side that, again, has had some yo-yo style of results starting the season here? Obviously a pair of wins and a pair of losses, and not really found themselves fully.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at just, I would say, first of all, the form guide is itself a little concerning for Brentford, but it's also the manner of the defeats. I think they took the lead against Sunderland through Thiago in the 77th minute, and then conceded two late goals and essentially lost the game. And we're pretty good against Villa for the large part, kept it very safe, sound, so we wouldn't say much about it, but if you look at their side versus the Brentford that a lot of top sides were afraid of, I think the one thing that I would point out to is the attacking numbers have just dropped off a cliff. They've lost those key players, and that hasn't been replenished in any shape or form. So just the numbers, Dan, again, 3 games in. So please take this with a little bit of vinegar, salt, and yeah. But they're joint bottom for chances created, along with Crystal Palace. They're joint bottom with Palace again for shots taken per 90 minutes. They have only one assist in the 3 league games that they've played, and that is from a player who is yet to complete a full 90 for them. So I would point out again Damsgaard as somebody who is that creative fulcrum, who's got that little bit of genius to pull off those passes. Henderson's long passing is good. He will try to find Ouattara in space. He will try to find 1v1 isolations, but it is Damsgaard who brings 3 very direct attackers together. So I think that's somebody who you have to take care of. And he's somebody who's also created 1/3 of the chances that they've created in the Premier League. So shutting him down in transition, making sure that you've got somebody who's breathing down his neck, not giving him space and time, I think that could blunt Brentford's threat quite significantly. The second is something that I noticed in particular against Villa. So both sides were playing a 4-2-3-1, and interestingly, Sepp van der Berg, their centre back, was stepping up from the centre back position to as high as the opposition third to try and pressure the number 10, which was Yuri Tielemans. So this had a knock-on effect, Dan, where the right back, Coyote, he had to slot in to help his other centre back, and it also left the left winger kind of free to do his own thing. And unfortunately, the left winger there was Morgan Rogers, who's very dangerous, very good at picking up spaces. So what he did in that game was try to pick up those pockets and then receive and then run at Coyote and run at the other centre back time and again. Rogers didn't have a great game, didn't really create the kind of impact that he did last season, but it does offer a little bit of an interesting tactical battle in terms of how are Chelsea going to cause trouble with their number 10. So if it's Cole Palmer, if it's Enzo, if it's Estevao, can you pull those centre backs out? Can you give them a little reason to doubt? And can you make the back line reshuffle and reconsider how to deal with that threat? I think that's going to be key for us. And somebody like a Garnacho on that left wing is very well suited for the game because he loves doing the exact same things. We've talked about it in the player preview special and the scouting special that we did together. So somebody who loves being that auxiliary forward, who loves picking up those pockets, running at people. So somebody like a Neto or a Garnacho could be quite interesting in that tactical aspect. In my The third I would point out is Kelleher is quite reluctant to leave his line, Dan, and he's erred multiple times when trying to come for aerial deliveries or set pieces. And it's quite similar to Leno versus Fulham. So we did predict, like I did predict, that there was going to be a set piece goal in that game. And I probably would want to stretch my luck a little bit and say, would not be surprised if there's one more in this game. He doesn't look convincing enough, has had quite an embarrassing error where he jumped up to clear the ball and punched his own defender at the back of the head. So looks shaky, looks like, an extremely good shot stopper like De Gea, but somebody who's not confident commanding his area on those aerial deliveries. So that could be definitely one to watch. If he can beat the boogeyman here, I think it could be quite a comfortable scoreline. So keeping my fingers crossed there. And the last one is, I think, Jordan Henderson, for all his PL experience, for all that he's achieved. Age is not on his side. He does look a little vulnerable when the space is not ideal. So Brentford, obviously, somebody who loves doing yo-yo stuff, transition, break as quickly as possible. The center midfielders obviously have to compensate in terms of recovery position, so it's back to front, shunting up and down. So if the spaces are not ideal, then I think you can exploit Jordan Henderson. You can exploit that pivot in the center of the field, and if you put somebody who's a very good ball carrier against him, then I think you can cause the center of Brentford a lot of issues, and that's where I think we could essentially have an advantage if we exploit it smartly.
Well, I mean, we have seen that this team is capable of looking at a weakness and exploiting it appropriately to great end outcome. See Club World Cup final against PSG for examples of this in very recent history. Any other thoughts? I mean, just you did mention, I think, a lot of different weaknesses there. If there was one amongst that group that it's not necessarily an on the ledge prediction, but I mean, is it the set piece one that like they are just going to be super vulnerable and you feel more comfortable saying that that is you see Chelsea going out to attack that specific thing, try to win a corner, try to win a foul from a close location to put us in a position to get a dead ball opportunity or to get a corner kick? Or is there another one of these that you feel is going to produce the best outcome if we focus on it?
Yeah, I think Sunderland have sort of proved that they are very old school in how they exploit crosses, and they had a ball against Brentford. They were constantly bombing through the flanks and from the byline trying to cross to the far post, and Brentford did not look comfortable, which is quite, I would say, weird to say about a side like Brentford. They've built their reputation on being just incredibly good from those situations, and I think the change in personnel, the change in manager, obviously we stole their set piece coach, so I think all of that is sort of genuinely having an effect. So I would say wide crosses. I would say just set pieces are going to be crucial. I think there's 4 goals that we've scored now in 3 Premier League games. So, you know, if there's one way I want to replicate Arsenal is if you can get like 15 goals from set pieces, then so be it. That helps you get closer to that 75, 80 goal mark, which can inch you closer to that Premier League title. So go for the jugular, aim for those near post flick ons for Kukureya if you can. Put it in the danger area where Kelleher is just inconsistent and haphazard. Like he comes to flap and doesn't get there. So make those things happen. You've got somebody like a Tosin, a Chalobah there to head it in. Then obviously Joao Pedro is really, really good as well. So you've got some really good aerial strength there waiting to feast on those opportunities. So I think that's genuinely my strongest tactical advice or takeaway from here. Bombard Brentford. Don't go on the image of the past. This is a different Brentford. So just find the artillery and get shooting.
Well, we're going to take our last ad break, and when we come back, it is an opportunity for Sam to flip the script, ask me a couple of questions here, and I will try to give my best Maresca-style answer to what I think Chelsea might do, and what, if I disagree, what I think Chelsea could or benefit doing themselves. But stay tuned, be right back. All right, Sam, so you have a couple of questions here you want to throw at me. Look, I'm just going to say the first one, it's not what anybody wants, but it's just dealing with the reality of the situation.
I mean, it's a forward horror story for me. So what if no Palmer?
Forward horror story. Fantastic. I think much like the situation with Liam Lap right now, again, the reporting over the international break was that he'd be back sometime in late November, not getting a surgery on his hamstring, but just trying to work himself back into full fitness there. I would prefer that when Cole Palmer comes back from this absence he has currently, that he's just 100% to go for the rest of the season. And so whatever situation, whatever recovery, whatever getting back into form he needs to do, let that happen now at the very, very beginning of the season. Because, I mean, as much as you would, hope that if I'm making a choice, I guess, between this match against Brentford or the Bayern Munich match coming up in the midweek for the Champions League, again, we're back in the Champions League. It feels really, really good. I'm probably picking Cole Palmer to get in that match if he were available in that time frame. I wouldn't force him into the rather Brentford match. So my gut is that he will not feature in this match. I think Maresca will try to protect him. I think the club will try to protect him. And so if he doesn't play, well, now we're in a situation where you have Joao Pedro, number 9. You have likely a combination of Pedro Neto and one of our other wingers, whether that's Gittins, whether that's I don't think Garnacho starts. And you've asked a couple questions here all about the attack, so I'm not gonna like go into each of them deeper. But I think it is a matter of I would not expect him to play at least again before the press conference. We're recording this before we know any updated information. There has been no photos, at least that I've seen from the training ground perspective, that indicate he is on the field and on the pitch. So if that's the case, then I don't expect to see him.
And that's the big question for me. It's obviously we did very well without him, but obviously with the enigma that is called Palmer in the side, then we are quite different in the way that we trouble, the way that we prod, the way that we break sides. So I'm really hoping that he's around, but also good opportunity for the others to step up and show that we're not a one-man army. We are genuinely got the tools right now to challenge and essentially cope with what is, I think, just a regular part of grueling title-winning campaigns and sides. You go through injury issues, you lose star players, and you've got to cope and adapt. So I think it's a good chance for Maraska and the side to show that somebody can step up and take the mantle. And looks like Enzo is doing the job. Looks like Estevao is ready to step up. So fingers crossed that he's around. But if he's not, then another challenge to hopefully face and come out trumps on our way to a PL title. So some optimism there from two of the most optimistic members. I can already see Nick shaking his head, slowly. But yeah, I mean, why not dream big and aim for the big one? So I think I would go there. But yeah, the second question, Dan, is I think it's again something that just a lot of Chelsea fans are mulling over and trying to figure out whether this is going to be, a tactical thing that Maraska sticks to, because Joao Pedro has said he sees himself as a 9. He has been played as a 9. Obviously, no Delap. Guiu is back. So what happens at number 9? Like, are you keeping Joao Pedro there after what we saw against Palace, and more importantly, what we saw him do as a number 10 against West Ham? Or are you saying no? It's, you play him as a striker with like really good players around and try to see if he can make a breakthrough against Brentford, who I would say have a pretty good, solid centre back pairing. So, what is your thought process there?
Oh man, that is, I think, a very, very interesting one. And I do think the way that you framed it was the fit to go or super sub was the view around Garnacho. And again, this would be the first opportunity to see the guy get a chance to, be involved in a match and to do so as a Chelsea player, which I think is always can be a very positive or negative experience. We've seen some really great out of the gate moments, and we've also seen some slow starts. And if it is going to be the opportunity for him to get involved for the first time, we hope it is the best possible end outcome. Something like a goal or a winning goal would always be appreciated. My guess is that he doesn't start. My guess is if he does involve himself in the match, it's 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more. And I think this is the pragmatic Maresca looking at, okay, I have Cole Palmer out, but coming back. I have Liam Delap out. I have Gittins available and healthy. I have Pedro Neto available and healthy. I have, Joao Pedro. I have Estevao. I would love to have Garnacho potentially, in my kind of compliment here, but I probably don't start him yet, given that, we finished our round of games right before the window and then everybody was off for international duty. So this would be, kind of those first competitive minutes. I just feel like it screams substitute for me. It screams 20 minutes max, because he also, in his desire to leave Manchester United, wasn't playing football. And so this is an opportunity for him to get back on a pitch competitively for the first time in a long time. So I don't see him starting. I think the interesting wrinkle would be, does he then end up coming on for, Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro is playing in the 9. Or do you see something like Pedro Neto playing in the 9, Joao Pedro playing a little bit further back, and then some type of combination of, wing solution there? very, very interesting to see how Maresca is going to stitch together this attack with two very, very kind of quick turn matches here against Brentford and Bayern Munich coming up. I think of which we would all agree this one is important. Every point in the Premier League is important rather. I do feel as if we're all looking with one very large eye open to that midweek match at this point in time, though.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Maresca might say that the next match is everything and nothing beyond that, but he's 100% just got, you know, he's a little bit cross-eyed as he's looking at Bayern Munich and saying, that's also extremely important, and I don't want to overexert and essentially get somebody playing, the full 90 minutes when they don't have to. So, in my opinion, Dan, I think it's quite straightforward. You play Pedro Neto at the nine. You basically play him for, if you can, 65, 70 minutes. And then if you can, if Marquinhos is fit, you get him on and try to see the game out if the game state favors us. And then based on Palmer, if you've got Palmer, then, the 11 writes itself. I don't know if Maresca is going to play him on the right hand side, but you've got Palmer, you've got Joao Pedro in the center. Then on the left hand side, you can essentially figure out if you want to do a little bit of tweaking there. So Palmer can move left, Esteva on the right. So there are permutations and combinations available to him. Gittins again is somebody who can start on the left side. He's played 60 minutes, not really had great performance there, but maybe after the international break, he's probably got some nice minutes in with the under 21 England side. So a little fresher than Garnacho. But yeah, I think from a tactical standpoint, like I mentioned, it does favor somebody like Garnacho. It's just, does he have the gas? Is he sharp enough? Is he fit enough? Those are very, very important questions. Like you said, maybe 20, 25 minutes to come, get a run on and try to make things happen. But it could essentially be, Tyreek George has been used there, and I just did not like that at all. Like, I've not liked it from day one, despite the Fulham goal. He played 45 minutes against Fulham last time, and he had 0 passes attempted. So just not the right profile to play up front against PL centre backs. Try to throw Neto on there. I would say in a future time, Maresca could even try playing Garnacho there. I think there is something in there in terms of Garnacho playing the nine. People are probably going to like throw abuses and say, what the hell is he talking about? He's never played that. Completely understood, but he's been a centre forward in his youth ranks, and he does function more like a centre forward than he does as a winger. So I would say that would be an interesting tactical tweak, maybe, another reason why we didn't splurge on a centre forward. So fingers crossed, but at least in the short term, play Neto at 9 if you can. And if you want to just keep it as, stable as possible, then you just go Joao Pedro at 9, Palmer in the 10, you put Esteba on the right, and you put Gittins or Neto on the left, and you go from there.
All right. Well, any other questions, or should we move on to some predictions for this one?
Absolutely. I would love to ask you. So give me a scoreline and give me an on the ledge prediction, one that you've not made on this show so far. So, we'll give you
okay.
your flowers when you do get it right.
Well, I think Chelsea win. I think Chelsea win 3-1, because we've just been having some fun scoring goals at this point in time. And I think that of the 3 goals, that 2 of the goals will involve a South American connection. So they don't necessarily have to be like Estevao scoring off of Joao Pedro, but something like Enzo, ends up with like 2 assists and Estevao is involved, or vice versa. I think there's going to be some really fun combinations from our South American contingents there, and that also allows me to rope in Garnacho into it as well.
Fair enough, vague enough, but also effective enough to essentially save your skin in case you get one wrong. So I think cleverly played, Dan, as always. Didn't expect anything less from you. From me, I think I'll go a little ambitious and say Brentford are not going to have more than 7 shots in this game.
Oh,
And
okay.
I might go one more and say I don't think they create I think they create one big chance or they don't create any. So one of those 2 things happens for sure. And I don't want to go set piece goal again, even though my gut says that there is a very good chance that happens. But yeah, I do really think that it again, Joao Pedro continues his scoring streak and possibly gets one from outside the box is my gut feeling. So that's, I mean, somebody gets it from outside the box, but to just be extra specific, I'll go with Joao Pedro.
Ooh, all right. Well, I mean, look, it's not a hard thing and not a completely unheard of narrative on the idea that Joao Pedro is going to score some goals for Chelsea. Just change a little bit of the format of how he's going to do that. But we'd love to hear your on the ledge predictions. How you think Chelsea is going to win this one, and what type of crazy way Chelsea will do it here. But that's going to do it for this episode. So, again, this was our Brentford match preview. Tons more content coming your way. We are going to have our match review. There'll be the Bayern Munich match preview, the Bayern Munich match review, along with other content, because obviously the Chelsea women are back in action as well. So, plenty of Chelsea news, content, information coming your way. Don't forget to get involved. You can do so. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Always appreciate it. You can get involved in our free Discord community or paid version if you want to help support the podcast. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, The London Blue Dispatch. And then you can also on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, you can hit the bell icon to get notified. And you can leave some comments saying you appreciate the fact that we're here, giving you some information about Chelsea Football Club, or you think our opinions are not so good. That would be an on the ledge type of comment to receive. But that's going to again do it for this one. So thank you so much for listening. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.